we are exactly at quorum. So, good job, everyone. Wow. Please rise to the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a lot of business to get to tonight, so we're just going to head right on in through old business. We have currently no letters of intent in for any of the nominations for Arts and Sciences rep or freshman rep. Are there any further nominations for those? There's one freshman junior representative position, two Arts and Sciences representative positions. Seeing no further nominations on those, if you do have any, please let me know. Karen Gladys, she'll get in touch with the nominees. We do have a letter of intent in for the Elections Commissioner position, and we do need to let that tonight. So, Vice President Brown.
Move to close nominations for Elections Commissioner.
Second.
Okay. We have nominated Mr. Dooner, who has accepted and sent a letter of intent. Mr. Brown, you were also nominated. Can we get an official word on your
I decline.
Fine. So we have Mr. Dooner nominated. If you would please approach the podium.
It's the best kind of election. Alright. Used to seeing the countdown go. I'm good, I think. Okay, so you should consider all the candidates very carefully. But seriously, yeah, don't read my letter of intent. It's probably the worst letter of intent anyone's ever written in the history of USG. But yeah, I'll do election commissioner. I'll be happy to do it, to put together elections and all of that kind of stuff. I'm pretty confident I can do a good job based on my previous planning experience in random things like humans versus zombies and these kind of things. So I'm pretty stoked. I don't know. Any questions, I guess?
Are there any questions from students? Ms. Brown.
Is there any word on the theme of this election we used in past year we've used portal? I wasn't sure if that was continuing.
I haven't thought about that at all.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Can you please step out of the room? If we could please mute the recording for me. Congratulations, Mr. Newman. As a note, the Elections Commission will now be forming up. We have a commissioner, so if you're interested in helping out with that, please go talk to Tom. He can go over requirements with you, et cetera, et cetera. So, with that, we're all done with old business, and we move right into new business. The bills, we don't have to consider them in the order that they're printed. We can go for whichever one anybody feels like introducing in order. So, do I have a motion? Vice President Brown.
Move to introduce Bill D 22-23, public religion bill.
Second. Okay. I am authorized, so I will be speaking in the pro here shortly. Let me just make sure I flip to this. So this comes out of the discussion open forum we had 2 weeks ago. Executive committee took your discussion points and we consolidated them down based on the informal vote, which we felt the assembly was needing. And we put this bill together to reflect what it seemed like the majority opinion of the assembly was. So that is pretty much all I have to say, Speaker and the Pro. Are there any questions for me on the wording of the language?
Point of clarification. If there was a student that was interested in speaking and after reviewing the agenda believed that it was supposed to come at 7:55,
Could you clarify what you mean?
we wanted to give an opinion about the bill and address the assembly.
You could table the bill after we enter discussion, and then we can bring it up again later if you feel it's pressing enough. And the assembly can vote to table and then bring it up again later in the meeting. Okay. Any other questions for me? Seeing none, is there a speaker in the con? Seeing none, we will move into discussion. I'll set an initial time limit of 4 minutes, but we can call the question before then if we're ready. So are there any points for discussion? Representative Jeannie.
Originally, after reading the editorial, or op-ed, or whatever the correct term for it was, and then the paper, I originally wrote a response to it that I was planning on sending into the Observer, but I feel like it would be appropriate for me to share my thoughts here, so I'm going to do that. So bear with me. Okay. So for those who don't know, in a recent op-ed piece in the Observer, Andrew Breland argued against the possible decision of the university student government to remove the Pledge of Allegiance from their general body meetings. He argues that Americans recite the pledge to affirm their allegiance to freedom, the American dream, and American exceptionalism. He rails against the argument that the pledge should be removed because it may make some representatives, namely international students, uncomfortable. At one point he states that immigrants don't have a right to live in America if the pledge makes them uncomfortable. Finally, he argues that removing the pledge constitutes an affront to the rights of the many for an over-consideration of the minority. But I think he makes a confusing point about the purpose of the pledge. His lack of distinction between his recitation in government settings versus his recitation in private settings is problematic. Private groups have the freedom to hold meetings how they choose. Some members of USD feel that the pledge doesn't affirm the stated purpose of the organization, and these members wish to replace it with something more appropriate. So I think the distinction here lies between reciting things in government settings and reciting things in private settings. So obviously, as was stated in the bill, in a government setting, when you're reciting the pledge, it affirms the purposes at hand, the goals at hand. But here, where our goal is to represent the interests of the CWRU student, it's a little shaky how reciting the American Pledge of Allegiance really affirms our purpose as an organization. Sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase here. So basically, I feel like we should be able to run a meeting without receiving criticism for not doing so patriotically enough. I'm all for replacing the pledge with an oath to remind us of our obligations to the CWRU student. Sorry, that's wrong.
Any other points for discussion? Representative Williams?
Over the past 2 meetings, we have spent more time arguing about this than it would have taken us to say the pledge for 2 full years. We actually Mr. Junior and I calculated this last week. It takes 12.7 seconds to say it. Add some time in there for sitting up and standing up and sitting down and talk today. With that, call a previous question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any dissent to any discussion? There is dissent, so we will vote on that then. So, to be clear, this is a vote to close discussion on the bill. So please vote A now in favor of ending discussion and moving to the vote. B no to keep discussion open, and C to abstain.
Point of information, have I missed the opportunity to table the bill?
You have. And Colin, only question is a higher precedence motion than tabling, so the call to question would go through. Yeah. Give me 1 second. The percentages there aren't perfect because they include abstentions, which aren't actually a part of calculations. Yeah. I just want to. And we are at 70% in favor of closing discussion, so it does pass. So we'll move immediately to the vote count. Please vote now on Bill 22-23. A is in favor of passing the bill, B is no opposed, and C is abstains. Okay, and the bill passes. So the pledge will be taken out of the future meetings, and exec will be working on an oath, equivalent oath, to replace that that's more focused on USG. So with that, we're back into new business. Representative Rodriguez.
Point of information, clarification, so y'all will be investigating the idea of replacing it with another oath, as stated?
Yes,
So investigating, not necessarily putting in place another.
correct. If we have, once we look into more what we would replace it with, we'll bring that back to assembly again for your guys' thoughts. So with that, we're back into new business. Representative Thompson.
Move to introduce Bill B-22-22.
Second.
Is there a speaker in the crowd? President Hale.
Good evening, GA. I'll be brief. The reason this is included, there's 3 reasons I asked to include a bill. The first being for archival value. We've changed the way meetings have traditionally been scheduled throughout the semester since we moved into the chapter room. So we're setting a precedent for the future, and it's important that I think it's important that we record exactly what our reasoning was in making that change if we're going to commit this idea of meeting every other week. The second is I think we need closure on the issue. It's time to make a decision. And the third is accountability and transparency to the groups we represent. By meeting less often, we're limiting the amount that folks can reach out to us and attend our meetings, participate in our meetings. So it's important that we do some kind of formal decision so that folks have again, a way to understand what we were thinking when we did that.
Are there any questions for the speaker?
Just to clarify, so if this passes, what are we passing?
This would concretely set GA's schedule for the remaining of the semester so that we meet every other week while still meeting often enough to satisfy the 7 meeting requirement.
Oh.
And this is only for this semester. This doesn't perpetuate into the next year. I realize it's towards the end of the semester, and maybe that seems like a moot point. But perhaps the second 2 things I listed as motivations for a bill are your motivation for voting.
Any further questions for the speaker? Mr. Newton?
If the bill fails, we go back to weekly meetings, right?
No, to clarify that. So the bill failing doesn't specify that we go back to weekly meetings. It just specifies that we never, settle necessarily on every other week. The proper way to go about that would be to amend the bill so it says under be it resolved A that we will meet weekly instead, which would be a valid amendment to propose, despite seeming sort of contradictory to the original intent of the bill. I looked into it specifically. So if you would like to make sure that we meet every week, that is an amendment we could consider proposing.
Okay, that's our question.
I suggest it would be proposed. Question Williams?
Could you just clarify the fifth whereas clause, whereas the executive committee found that time committed to PSG seemed excessive to some village and enable impacted retention? Could you give a citation to the retention piece?
Teacher Brown's study into retention last year. Would that be correct, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, so the study last year showed that it was a main contributor, but N was 5, so that's why. Yeah.
So it's not a conclusive study.
Any further questions for the speaker? Vice President Williams.
So then along those lines for the sixth whereas clause, whereas the USG Journal Assemblies remained effective while meetings less renewed, what is this based on?
Perhaps if you disagree, you would move to amend the bill.
I would say that since you are the bill's author, that I'm asking you why the clarification for this.
That's my opinion.
Further questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none, thank you, President Hale. Do we have a speaker on the con? Representative Conmeyer?
Hey everyone. I am speaking in the con to this with kind of the initial intent of actually amending it, like Matt said, to say that we should meet weekly from now on. And the reason I'm doing this is because the funding process for USG with meeting every other week is way too long. When groups submit their funding requests, it could take up to 2 to 3 weeks for them to know when they are getting their money or if they're getting their money. So that's kind of scary for groups. Also, if they come in for appeals, it can be 3 to 6 weeks, which is even longer. And then also if the finance committee maybe I don't know, we would never do this, but let's say we're saying, oh, I don't like this group, let's not give them money. And they want to come to appeal to GA, that could take a month and a half after they submitted their request to come to appeal to GA, since we meet every other week, which isn't really fair to the groups because most likely their event has already passed, they've already lost that money, and a lot of groups don't really want to wait a month and a half to then present to GA. So it's just kind of not that fair to the groups. And also some students, when they do request money for events, the way it works is they pay for it themselves and then they get, what's the word? Reimbursed. Thank you. Sorry guys, I'm nervous. But then they get reimbursed for their money. So a lot of groups can go in and pay $500 for an event and then end up not getting the money for it and not knowing until after the event happens. So that student just lost $500 on an event that they could cancel. And that's kind of scary. And a lot of times you could say that, hey, maybe they should have planned ahead and asked for the money sooner. But things come up. Some groups don't know if they're going to go to a tournament until 2 weeks before. Some groups, something breaks for their event and they have to get a new thing. Or, there was an issue last year with AAA where all their stuff was in Twing and it got destroyed. It was stored in Twing and it got destroyed. And they had to get reimbursed for it, and that took a while. So it's just really hurting our student groups. And I know we say that we're going to change the funding process and in the future it'll be okay, but right now, since we haven't changed it yet, for this semester it's not fair to be hurting our groups this way until after we change the funding process. I don't think that we should be looking in the future, oh, we can investigate different changes. We need to have a solid plan in place that we're using before we actually start meeting every week. And my last point is just, we were all elected by the students to represent the students, and I think in order to do that properly, we have to meet every week. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks, guys.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Representative Sutter?
So are you going to be making an amendment to the bill?
I will attempt to during discussion.
Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative Conmeyer.
Thank you.
With that, we alternate back. Is there a speaker in the pro who would like to respond specifically to any of Representative Conmeyer's arguments? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. I'll set 4 minutes as the initial discussion limit. President Hale.
So, not a point directly for discussion, but just a suggestion. Instead of eating up time rewriting the bill during GA, if you really don't agree with it, if I may suggest an alternate course of action, let's vote it down and then bring up the question in the future of going back to every week meetings. Because like amending it to say every week, well then the whereases don't really make sense. So, just a thought.
Vice President Brown.
Just a point for the assembly, if we go to a weekly meeting, we'll add 1 at maximum 2 meetings to our semester. Just keeping that in mind and not trying to wait for discussion.
Mr. Newton.
So it might also be possible to not amend the bill, but for all of us to have a shared understanding that if we're making a choice between 2 things here. So even if it's not written in the letter of the law, then we can still go back to weekly meetings if we vote this bill down. There's nothing in our bylaws saying weekly meetings, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we can just, the executive committee can just decide that, right?
Other points of discussion? Representative Shaw. Grant. Vice President Williams.
I move to strike either the third or the fourth whereas clause, just as a duplicate. I'm not sure if this is a grammatical mistake.
Yeah, as a double printing, we'll count that as a grammatical and just take out the fourth.
Say separate.
Representative Running-Swami.
After hearing both sides, I'm really in favor of going back to weekly at this point. But my question is, I know it was mentioned that exec could make this sort of change. Would that be something that they would do this upcoming Friday during the exec meeting, or all the logistics of that work? I want to make sure it gets into place, if it can, before, I guess, right after spring break.
It would almost certainly be discussed at the exec meeting. President Hale, seems like you want to clarify.
Yeah, I don't like this idea of if we vote it down, exec will make the change to go back to weekly, because I don't know what exec would decide. And I don't think everyone in the room that's on exec could know what we would decide right now. I think if you guys really want to go back to a weekly, vote this down, someone move that we go back to weekly, and let's vote that in. And then we have to decide to go back to weekly, and it's not uncertain at all.
Representative Martinez. Granted. Representative Marshall.
As far as I can tell, it seems that the reason that we're considering going back to weekly is from the Finance Committee. And therefore I want to know what their argument is, that they need changes to how finance is done. So I want to know why no one in finance has yet brought forward a bill that changes that process instead of requiring the entire GA to change for their process.
Vice President Williams.
So I guess the way I would look at that is currently in our operating bylaws, all the decisions that Finance Committee makes are required to be passed by the Assembly as legislation. And in order to change that part of it, we would need to say, okay, we need to give the Finance Committee some leeway of saying whatever it is. The problem is though, then that creates a whole separate issue of what is acceptable. And if you have this kind of scenario, where it's $1,000, how is that different than another group's, if it's $999? Like, what's that difference? How are you able to determine what the Finance Committee should and should not be able to do? And so I think until we're able to pinpoint that, I think it's tricky to be able to say, here's the course we should take, because the Assembly still needs to have some sort of check over the Finance Committee, and nobody in the Assembly has come forward to say, here's the check that we want to have, here's that limit that we want to say we have.
Representative Marshall.
On that, then I think a better discussion than this one is to actually go ahead and have that discussion. There's nothing saying that we can't go ahead and talk about that and just, this is not the bill to be discussing over, but let's sit down and as a General Assembly decide what we believe the Finance Committee can and can't do for everyone.
The Executive Committee is actually working on a project to address that right now. So for discussion on this, let's keep it focused towards this bill instead of the Finance Committee revisions aspect of it. Representative Kottmeyer?
I think the only way that to guarantee that we will meet every week this semester, we have to amend this bill now, because it sounds like otherwise it's just up to exec discretion, which isn't solid. So I would like to amend the bill instead of to say bi-weekly to say weekly. So I'm gonna do that.
As one quick clarification on that, we can check the bylaws on the number, but General Assembly, if enough members call to have a meeting, can have a meeting. I think it's 1/3. So we can check the operating bylaw. So we can vote to, in assembly, have a vote to have those meetings, have a call for those meetings as well. So we can, so you guys as GA can guarantee that we have meetings, each week, if that's what you would like to do, without necessarily amending this bill.
Okay.
So there are both ways of going about it. So would you like to keep your amendment on
No,
the
then I will.
withdrawn? Okay. And that can be considered as an item of new business. If you take a look at the executive committee board report, right now the plan is not to have a meeting for the Tuesday following spring break. But if you as representatives, I believe it's 1/3, we're checking on it, request for a meeting, then we will have a meeting. Any other points for discussion? There's time for one more. President Hale.
So since I've yet to hear a point of the pro, almost said con, I'll give one. I think our meetings are no longer, we're more effective with business. We've been a little lighter with business. There's changes in the pipe for giving finance more leeway and not needing to come to assembly for approval of a decision. And I think the pipe Matt or someone highlighted, this really affects our schedule for one meeting this semester. Instead, I think this is, my thought into going into this was to do something that makes us transparent about what we decided to do with our schedule this year. And so we've been meeting a whole year, every other week, the way this bill describes. And so my goal is transparency to our folks. I'm trying to think of the word, constituents, there we go. And, I kind of enjoy having every other Tuesday off to catch up on homework. So I'd rather not sit here and listen to poorly worded argument if we can condense our arguments and be concise and effective in one meeting every other week instead of equally long meetings every week where we're getting just as much done. So what's the idea of having more meetings if we're no more effective?
Okay, since we're still looking up the constitutional or bylaw exact number on representatives calling meetings, and that would affect if we make a motion to amend the bill or not, I'm going to continue discussion here since there are several other points that people would like to be made. So are there any further points on discussion? Representative Feaster?
Okay. So I agree with Representative Marshall in that it seems to me like, I agree with President Hill that we are not markedly less effective having meetings only every other week. I think we get about the same amount of stuff done, but since so much of what we do in GA is finance, and finance is the roadblock, and finance is not reforming right now, like there's lots of talk about it, but since it's just not happening, I think we need to choose right now, either we fix the finance process right now, or we change back to weekly, which stinks, because I really like having bi-weekly. But I agree with Representative Colmeyer that it's not fair to our student groups. So I think we just need to make a choice one way or the other, whether we put a Band-Aid on it and go to weekly, or fix the finance process.
Treasurer Ridgewood?
I was just going to point out that I don't think it's fair to say that the Finance Committee isn't doing anything to fix the problem because right now we're rewriting the entire bylaws. And if you want to have we've been working on this exec forever and it's finally starting, we're writing them currently right now and we're going to get them hopefully approved soon. If you want to speed that process up and help us with all of that, and so we don't have to have this discussion of finance come to executive, and help us with the funding bylaws.
Representative Grant?
So to me, it just seems as if. So it just seems. I think what we need is already within this bill. In that, as you're already checking that we can vote to have additional meetings, the only thing I'm against having one every week is it seems Like if we had it being more than just the financial things, if we had like the bill for the pledge of allegiance and things like that, we get a much longer discussion. The only thing I fear is that we'll have hour and a half or hour plus meetings every week. But if the issue is that we need to be able to pay students to have this money or to be recognized, I feel that we could have a much shorter reaper meeting if, when necessary, to okay those things as needed. I don't think that's a big issue, or that we necessarily need the weekly meetings at this point.
Mr. Noonan?
So I think that the finance thing is, as Levi said, we're working on the finance thing. However, these are problems that groups are having today and yesterday and for the last semester as well. So finance we owe it to our groups to be on top of these things. And I know that the finance committee does a great job as well as they can within the bi-weekly schedule. So cool. But one other thing is that there are more reasons than just finance for this, for going back to weekly meetings or staying on. Like, there are more reasons to consider. There's the feel of things, like, are we really paying it? Like, on the off week, sometimes I don't think about USG at all, and that's a confession of mine, I guess. But like on the off week, sometimes I don't think about it because I don't have to do it on Tuesdays, and like, I don't know. That's a break in the continuity of the semester for me. So, for instance, I guess there are other things as well.
Okay, so at this point, since we did locate the clause, it is at the request of 1/3 of members of the USG, we can call for a meeting. So with that question settled, time is passed for discussion. So unless there's a motion to extend, there are a number of points out there. So unless there's a motion to extend discussion, then we'll call the question. Representative Monticello?
Move to extend.
Shall I just?
By a minute.
Okay. Motion to extend discussion by 1 minute. Is there a second?
Second.
Any dissent? Great. We'll keep going. Vice President Williams?
So I realize that finance is not the most fun thing to deal with in General Assembly meetings, but I would like to remind the Assembly of two things. First, in the grant of power given to us by the Office of Student Affairs and by President Snyder, essentially, half of our mission is helping student organizations. We are unique in the fact that we get to recognize other student organizations to represent the university, use the university's name, and make our campus better. No other organization on this campus has that ability. Secondly, our budget as it stands this semester, we have about a $250,000 budget. $200,000 of that is for student group use. If 4/5 of our entire budget is put towards student organizations, and I realize that finance is only 1/5 of the committees on this, but I'm sorry, if you look at the other numbers, finance is a pretty good priority. And if you can't agree to half of our mission, you probably should not be here.
Representative Brown-Graves?
It seems like if you have the ability to call to extra meetings, if there's pressing issues with finance, we can do that for the rest of the semester. Otherwise, I see no reason why not to pass this bill, continue what we've been doing for the entire year, as President Hale has been arguing. And if there's a pressing issue within the Finance Committee that they really want to bring up, then they can move to have another meeting on the Tuesday after spring break if that's very pressing. But otherwise, I mean, we're coming to the end of this year and we've been consistently on this every other week basis. I don't see, I mean, this is definitely a conversation for next year's GA and going into next year, but as of now, I would move to approve this bill.
Is that a call to question, or is that was just a?
Well, the minute's up as well, so call it the previous question.
Second. Okay, so any dissent to any? Okay. So since we're also at time for discussion, the best way to go about this is a 2/3 vote to continue discussion instead of 2/3 to close discussion and move it to the vote. It's a little bit opposite of what we normally do, but since we're at time limit, that's the best way to go about it. So.
Turn the microphones on.
Okay, so please vote A now to continue discussing the bill, be 22-22. B, to close discussion. And C, to abstain. Okay, so the discussion is thoroughly closed. So with that, we will move into the vote since there was a call to question. Yes?
Did people come back from their whatever
Yeah. Yeah, we have a feedback. We wrap over their views. Yeah. So people come in. Yes.
What this is, I'm now a little confused, I don't know exactly what exactly are we voting?
Right, yeah, I'm about to get that. Right now, we're voting on Bill B 22-22. So,
As written.
so you can vote now. So if you press A, you're voting yes in favor of passing Bill B 22-22. There were no amendments, so it will be as written, and we'll continue with every other week meetings. B is no opposed and C abstains. Yes? Okay, and the bill passes. So, with the Bill B 22-22 passed, we're moving back into new business. We have a couple of bills to consider yet. Do I have a motion? Representative Sutter.
Point of personal opinion.
Granted. Representative Thompson.
Move to introduce Bill B 22-20.
Okay. 22-20. Special Secretary. Okay, great. Speaker in the press, Vice President Williams. Great.
Well, finance is quickly losing the tally for number of bills, but this is a bill to recognize the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers. With that, we'll bring up open up to comments.
Are there any questions? Representative Thompson.
Sorry if this is in there, but does this have to be a part of a large organization?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, Vice President Williams. Is there a speaker on the con? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. I'll set 2 minutes. Any points? Representative Brian Swan.
This seems really straightforward, move to call. Call and previous questions.
Okay. Any dissent, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Please vote A in favor of passing Bill 22-20. B no opposed and C abstains. Okay, 22-20 passes. Back to new business. Representative Thompson.
Move to introduce Bill B 22-21.
Okay.
Okay, speaker in the front, Vice President Williams.
So this week, we have had an absolute record funding week. We have, over the past 2 weeks, we have done over 15 requests each week. So obviously not all of them were funded, and I'll answer questions about those in my board report, but we funded $7,736 out of the $13,443.30 requested. For some perspective, the last bill we passed, the total request was $7,300 roughly. So we are moving and grooving. So, and with that, I'm open up to polls.
I have one.
Sure.
For the Phi Alpha Delta, the requested amount total and the doesn't amount quite right, so that's grammatical. I messed up my 2 columns, so it's actually just data, slight correction rather than a question. So never mind. Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Vice President Williams. Is there a speaker in the con? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. I'll set an initial 2 minutes. Are there any points? As a note, these were sent out yesterday. We do our best to get them out early enough to try and be ready before meetings, so please try and do that as well. Vice President Brown?
Call for the question.
Second.
Any discussion? See none, we'll move to vote. Please vote A in favor of passing Bill 22-21. B no opposed, and C to abstain. And it passes. Representative.
I move to resolution R 22-52.
Second?
Okay, so Speaker in the front, Vice President Bond.
Hello, everyone. So if you're not aware, the university is putting in place a new posting policy. It's on the back of your agenda. It's on the page 19. But it is being put in place the week after spring break. This resolution specifically is for us telling our student groups to follow the university policy. And that is all. Any points? Yes.
Representative Thompson.
This is the same exact thing that was like supposed to be in effect a year and a half ago, right?
Not the same exact thing. This was put into the Student Executive Council about 2 to 3 years ago, and then they wrote a policy last year that was not able to be implemented. It was edited this past year by the Student Life Committee to make it more implementable. The signs are in and are being put up over spring break, and so it is different in that it's less strict and there are less violations, or less financial violations inflicted upon students that make mistakes. Yes. Lauren.
I was just wondering, is there a, okay, we're going to start over. Is there a plan for dealing with infractions that are made by non-recognized student groups or just community members?
Yeah, so this resolution isn't for us to be like in charge of whether student groups are doing it. It's just us encouraging them to do it. But yeah, for our student groups, they would go to Student Activities and Leadership. If it's a Greek organization, they would go to Greek Life. If it's RHA, they would go to Housing and Residence Life. It's whatever department the group specifically falls under.
I was just wondering if it was not a department, if it was like a business or something, because I've noticed that.
I'm not exactly sure what that would happen, but that would be something that Student Affairs would take care of.
Any other questions for the speaker? Okay. Oh, Representative Troy.
Is the spirit wall the thing next to the point? Sorry, okay.
Representative Thompson.
So just to clarify what Representative Huffman asked. So it says it's the campus posting policy at Case Western, but then is this just from Student Affairs? So like if, I don't know, the engineering school dean's office has a posting violation, they can't really enforce against that, right?
It's technically university policy, so I mean.
Okay, so it is university policy.
Yeah, it's going into the handbook.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, this bill is not for us voting whether to pass the policy. It's already happened among the university. It's just for us to encourage our student groups to follow it. And if we don't do that, they will be fined, so if they don't do it.
Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, Vice President Bond. Is there a speaker on the con? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. Set an initial 2 minutes. Any points? Representative Thompson.
So I read it again, and I see what the biggest difference is that it's not pointed out. It says that for every violation, for every violation, I'll have 24 hours to remove it, which is the big change. Because I think what it used to be was 24 hours, then you get fined, and then every subsequent violation, you get fined automatically. And I think the current version is much more reasonable. So.
As a point of clarification, it was automatic fine, there wasn't even 24 hours.
Even better.
Other points, Mr. Nunez?
I think the biggest change is actually all posters now need to have a contact name and a date when they must be taken down. So inform everyone that you know that on their posters.
Are there other points? Vice President Williams?
Just as a quick note for the VRC be it resolved, can we please add Christian Wargrove as co-chair of the Student Executive Council, and Mara Gallagher is also co-chair. So I move to amend it to reflect the current chairmanship.
Second.
Any dissent to adding that? Great, seeing none, it will be added. President Ham?
So this is a question for Patrick, perhaps. I'm a little confused, and I'm hoping you can just enlighten me, because I've been out of the loop for a while. This is, the way this bill is written and the way you explain it is a little inconsistent with the way I understood it when it left SEC, in that USG would, the way I understood it when it left SEC was that USG would work to refine the policy to get it back into a state where it could be implemented, and then this body would decide to implement the new policy and ask Student Affairs to do that. It seems like that step got missed. Can you just talk about how the policy went from SEC to us and then to Student Affairs?
Sorry, can you clarify?
So why is it already being implemented without GA voting on yes, we're in favor of implementing it?
Because it's a university policy, and the university has already accepted it, so it's not a decision of whether we think it should be implemented. It's a decision. It's already been decided by administration that it should be implemented, as well as the Student Executive Council has already had the updates on it and agreed to being co-authored on the resolution.
Any other points for discussion? Okay. Seeing no, Vice President?
Call for discussion.
Any dissent to closing discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. So the bill will be as amended. The only amendment is be it resolved C, point 6, now reads Mara Gallagher co-chair, and there's a point 7 added for Christian Wargo co-chair of the SEC. Please vote now. A is in favor of passing resolution R 22-02. B is opposed, and C abstains. And it passes. We're back into new business. There's one other item of new business that wasn't printed in the agenda, because we made it in time for print, but we do have an engineering representative vacancy.
Grab your tickets and see Seth Myers go to the UPB thing. So, point 1. Point 2 is what we want to do special with that 26th meeting. Like I said, it's in the middle of elections. I think it'd be really cool to both showcase what USG is all about to people who might want to run, and also do what we're all about, and that's advocacy and being a liaison. Also student groups, but perhaps we'll yield a little extra time to another stuff you want to hear. So I'm going to send you guys 2 forms and 1 email right after this meeting. The first form will be for you to vote on some topics that we could invite guest speakers about. So if there's stuff you feel strongly about, vote it up high. If there's stuff you don't like, vote it down low. And that way an exec will know who to invite to the assembly, if anyone. And also a place where you can submit questions to ask the president when she's here on the 2nd. I ask that you submit questions beforehand so that we can give them to her, so that she can research them and actually have good answers for you that night. If you just ask cold questions the same night, it's fine if you do that. She won't have an answer for you. She'll say, I don't know, because we're often asking about things that are far more specific than her job deals with in a day-to-day basis. So she'd probably tell you, I'll have to follow up and let you know. I thought it'd be better if she can answer on the spot, and that requires her knowing the questions you'll be asking beforehand. Seem like a plan? And like was mentioned, we're working hard on the finance bylaws. Stop by exec if you want to help out. Points?
Any questions for President Ham?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next up is Student Life, Vice President Vaughn.
The Student Life Committee member of the bye-week is Hiram Cortez, and everything else is in my report. Any points?
Any questions for Vice President Vaughn?
So there's a patch of sidewalk in front of Mather House, like to the left of it, where the lights aren't on, and it's extremely dark at night. And I was wondering.
Mather Memorial?
No, Mather House.
Oh. Yes, yes, sorry.
So there's like, I think there's like 3 or 4 street lights that aren't on. So I was wondering if there's anything that student life committee could do about that.
Yeah, we'll have our lighting coordinators take care of that. Thank you.
Representative Thompson.
One of your initiatives is the green prediction system. Just wondering what's going on with that.
Yeah, so Jinju Ha and Hiram Cortez are working with Steve Campbell to find out exactly what's going on with that. I'm actually just confirmed a meeting with him for tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to him. So we are trying to have administration realize that the green prediction system is not exactly working at all. We've done, this has been worked on since the very beginning of the year, but we've been working, and we figured out that the reason that the prediction system isn't always working is because if a green stops for longer than 2 minutes or travels 10 yards off course, it gets lost out of the system, which is why the times change so often, but we're trying to get administration to look into a further system, or another system.
Representative Thompson.
Just as a follow-up, I think also one of the issues, like you said, it stops for more than 2 minutes. There's also the issue of drivers just like going on smoke/Starbucks breaks in the middle of driving.
That has been addressed, and
Okay.
as far as I know, it's been significantly improved this semester. They hired a whole group of new employees, and it's been very strictly enforced.
Any other questions for Vice President Bond? Seeing none, we'll move along to the report. Sorry.
Yeah, so there exists a Facebook group called Case Western Ideas, and someone recently posted on there about the dirt path on Quad that like everyone walks over, and they mentioned like, why don't we get a sidewalk there? I don't know, a student might look into that at all. It kind of makes sense to me.
We haven't specifically. There's started on my Facebook.
That's what we use to make the newsletter. I kind of showed everyone in my committee how to use it. It's an Adobe program, which you guys can all download for free from the Software Center. And I guess I can teach you guys too if you want to learn how to make newsletters. It's, anyway. Campus awareness plan, just note about that. DEEDS is shorthand for details. If you're wondering what that means. And upcoming events. We were trying to think of the campus-wide events, but my committee's only 7 people, so we were wondering if there was anything we looked over. I'm assuming there are. All we could think of were Springfest and Twing Study Over, like big campus events. Can you guys think of anything else that we didn't think of? Springfest, Twing Study Over. No. Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also events that are kind of campus-wide that aren't necessarily publicized as like campus-wide, so they're put on by student groups, or like the Relay for Life Committee, or the Spartan-thon, or any like number of cultural shows that have high volume.
Yes, stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have said like specifically campus-wide, but yeah.
There's Saturday day of service coming up. I think it would, like, some people are agreed, but, and like that's sometimes like, but I think anybody can join, and I think it would be cool if like a group of USG people went out and showed that care about it.
Vice President Brown.
I mean, 2 of those that come to my mind really quickly are communications office, which may or may not be considered campus-wide, I consider campus-wide, as well as late night practice.
It involves you whether you want to be involved.
Any other questions for Vice President Gallo?
Well, just committee office is the same, and the fun fact, I'll just boil it down, Ohio is the 43rd most well-off state, so also looking at it, the 7th worst off. So, yeah, so rep spotlight. So going with the theme today, which was tropical, I think. I didn't have tropical clothing, I'm from Cleveland, so sorry. But I did get tropical mango juice, straight from the Bahamas, and tropical starburst. I did my best, alright? Constantino's is not very tropical. I was gonna get tropical smoothies, but we already got this, so.
You did get.
Well, I did get them, but you know what I mean. So, first person is, one second. They enjoy soft rock music. They like the people of USG the best, and their most influential person in their life is their mother, Madre. I'm taking Spanish 101, so their Madre, su Madre. When asked their favorite flavor of ice cream, they don't have a favorite flavor of ice cream because they don't like ice cream. So we're gonna beat them up later. Their favorite game to play as a child was Pokemon, and after college they want to retire. All right, some easier ones. They're from. I'll stop after 2 this time. They're from New Jersey, and they're majoring in political science and economics.
Representative Marshall has first go. Oh, no?
I was straight.
I said, no. Representative Brown.
Is it Pernod?
Indeed. So just something else. He likes, if he could have taken his name before he was born, it would be Jacquees. That pronounce that. Jacquizz. Jacquees. And if there's any event we could have seen, past, present, or future, he would have liked to see the Big Bang. Oh yeah, Starburst. Starburst? Okay. Thank you.
All right, our next representative. If they could have witnessed, and I'll read 3 again, and then you guys can guess. If they could witness any event, past, present, or future, it would have been MLK's I Have a Dream speech. They do have a favorite flavor of ice cream. They put it in all caps, strawberry. And the best thing they like about USG is all the possibilities of change on campus. Go student life. Hint,
I want to guess. Is it Vice President Vaughn?
Sorry.
Others?
I'm gonna guess.
Representative Swami?
No, I'm sorry.
Representative Sargent?
Is it Representative Stewart?
No, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll give you guys some more hints. What are the hobbies they enjoy? Anything arts and crafts. If they could have chosen
Vice President Friend?
Representative Feaster.
No, sorry.
Arts and crafts.
Yes.
Sorry. Vice President Vaughn.
Representative Massey.
No. And are you gonna?
Point of information, we have 3 questions until you're allowed to answer. So.
So if you would have gotten it right, you would have written the rules, and I would have taken the negative. Okay, let me continue. This should help. They're from Rochester, Michigan. Their major is management.
Vice President Wood? Okay.
Where?
That's not actually a representative.
Yeah, that is right.
I remember that's why you're getting more. Any other guesses? Treasurer Ridgeway?
Representative.
Correct. Now, I have to admit, I was being a little deceptive. She's no longer in the student life committee. She's now in the wonderful book relations committee. So, an interesting thing, when she answered the survey, one of the questions was who has been the most influential person in your life? And she answered with 2 people, but when you read the sentence straight through, it's my mom, comma, Helen Keller. So, just to be clear, mom is not Helen Keller. Well, congratulations.
Are there any final questions for Vice President Gavin? Okay. Moving along in reports then, Vice President Brown.
Okay, so we have a special report today from Vice President Emeritus Thompson.
It's like the official title for your old guy.
I have one main thing, but point of clarification. I checked this yesterday. The Adobe stuff is no longer available in the Software Center. Yeah, you can't get like Acrobat or anything anymore. And it says they predict that it'll be back on April 1st. So I'm trying to get that. Sorry. So I had a meeting with the head of the engineering school IT, which runs NordLab. And so as we all know, NordLab is kind of not good. So basically he gave me the rundown of the whole story, where they replaced everything in the summer, and the company that they were working with to set it up just basically didn't do it right. And so they fired them. They got this new company that built the Cleveland Clinic system, which is much bigger. So basically they should be able to handle it with no problem. And they came in, took one look, and were like, yeah, it's all set up wrong. And so they are going to redo it over spring break. So they're going to completely reset up everything. And yeah, so looking for after spring break, everything should be great. And the guy himself actually uses the same thing that you do in the NordLab. So he's like, yeah, and actually it's really bad for me because I have to do real work on it. And he also gave a little preview of what's to come. So he said in the future, theoretically what could happen is, and this is in the cards, where basically you would be able to go to engineering.case.edu/whatever, and then get your own personal virtual desktop from wherever you're sitting on campus. So it'd be like you're in NordLab without actually having to sit in NordLab. So if there's software that's only available there, like EduPack or whatever, you would be able to log into a NordLab computer and just run it. So they said they already have a pilot program going with the material science department, and it's going pretty well. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Representative Thompson or Representative Jean?
Seems like the committee is doing a lot of work on big student issues that people have been complaining a lot about. First the printers, and now this. Are there any plans to try to get the word out that USG is the one solving these issues? Because I feel like when these issues get solved, like when the printers were replaced, people were like, oh, the university got new printers. Or now I feel like people are going to say, oh, the university fixed the NordLab, but nobody will realize it was USG providing this.
I guess we haven't talked about it specifically, but I'd just also say, it wasn't totally, not to rain on our own parade, but the school definitely helped. The printer, for example, the printer contract was up, so the printers were going to get replaced. We helped pick the ones that we got, but just as an example.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Representative Thompson. Next report is Finance, Vice President.
So if you've been keeping up with the bills, you should have realized that this past weekend, one of our student organizations should have broken a Guinness Book of World Records for the world's highest cookie pyramid. I am so sad to say that they sent me an email Friday that all the cookies have been crushed on transit, and they had, I know, this is really heartbreaking actually. So they were not able to fulfill their mission, but here's the good news in all of that. Hirsch, who is the treasurer or president, I forget which one right now, he said, I want this money to go back to other student organizations. So thanks to Dynamic Growing Funding, it can. So we may not have the world's highest cookie pyramid, but we do have an additional $500. So, if anybody, so on that note, if anybody does want to try and break the world record and get some sturdier cookies, we do have the funds for that. And on that note, we have to date we have put back into the mass funding pool, or into the rolling funding pool, about $7,000, and that was just last week. I was too busy today to actually go through but I suspect that emergency rate will be adding a good bit more. So we've essentially paid for our first 2 bills, if you want to think of it like that. So rolling funding is going well, we're doing lots of things. You can see that there are 6 funding requests right there that we denied. If you have any questions about them, I would love to answer that. Other than that, I open up the points.
Vice President Brown?
So you said kind of we're at a net zero for a rolling money pool.
Disregarding this week, yes.
Okay, honestly.
Yeah.
So is there any effort being done to encourage students to spend that? It's a fairly large pool, it seems, how much do they have on?
Yes, so we would still technically have $33,000 that student groups can use. We'll call it $30,000. We do not have any current proactive efforts, but we can look into making more proactive efforts.
Representative Simon?
What happened to all the cookies?
They got crushed on transit.
And what happened with the
happened?
ground?
I am not aware of this. I do apologize. I do know, however, that APO continued their cookie theme this weekend and we're selling cookies at Lloyd Girl Scout cookies, I'm sorry. Not Lloyd Eater, Sweet Castles.
Representative Troy?
It was like a supplier from China, and before it like came overseas, it all got crushed, and so it's still their warehouse. And
There was a full refund given to the emergency.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
So unrelated. Just to clarify, I always assumed I knew this, but just want to make sure. You got, the finance committee looks into, like, they approved the groups coming to get recognition before the General Assembly, before we actually look at them, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Vice President Williams? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. And Academic Affairs, Vice President Fitch.
After GA tonight, Academic Affairs Committee will be in the library for midterm study break, giving out food. We'll be there tonight and tomorrow night. So come grab a cup of snacks and talk to people. It's usually pretty funny. People are stressed, so it's amusing. And then there's also Faculty Senate Committee on Undergraduate Education. There's a position on that committee open. If you're interested, come find me.
Any questions for Vice President Fitch? Okay, seeing none. My office hours are printed. Let me know if you want to talk. I'm open a lot, especially with elections coming up. With that, we move into open forum. Are there any discussion points for open forum? Representative Easter.
Hi, everyone. So I was approached by Chris Butler, who serves on the, let me get this right, the Faculty Senate Subcommittee on Student Life. There's another layer of committees in there. Anyway, he's one of the co-chairs, and he asked me to address, he actually saw my videos, and thought that I would be a good person to ask about student concerns about the bigger class size next year. We already talked about it in the Student Life Committee, but if anyone has any concerns about how the bigger class size next year can impact student life, specifically relating to housing and dining halls, those are the two that he's sort of spearheading. He just wants to have the maximum amount of information that he can to lobby for us. And I think that's very valuable to have like a faculty member that actually wants to hear from us before they talk about something. So if you have anything, I don't want to eat up too much of the forum time, but I would love an email, because I wanted to talk to him probably Friday. So email me, my email address is sxp445@case. So if anyone has any suggestions, please let me know.
Other open forum discussion topics, if there are any. President Cap?
So, the other night, I don't know why my microphone is so loud. I'm sorry if it's too loud. But the other night, I was arguing that USC was really effective with someone, and they cited something that I did not know. And I want to share with you guys and ask what you think about it. The 2012 National Survey of Student Engagement, commonly called NSSE on campus, it's a survey that's administered, I think it's every other year. So you either take it as an incoming freshman or an outgoing senior. And those are the only two groups that would ever take it. It compares us to other institutions across the nation, across the world, in higher education. And we score 15 percentage points of satisfaction lower then the top 10% of schools I don't know how I said that wrong. But answering the question, the school provides the support I need to the school provides the support I need to thrive socially. And it's a conglomerate of a number of questions that address the same topic to get a real statistic. We score 15 percentage points lower than the top percent and below the mean for colleges across the campus. To give you some perspective, we are above average on academic support, and we are above average with helping me cope with non-academic responsibilities, but we're below average for support I need to thrive socially. And be that distinguished from the campus attracts social individuals. But I found that pretty remarkable and a pretty stark deviation from what I would have expected to see. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about it, what we might do to look into that further.
Vice President Brown?
I mean, when I heard first of this, honestly, it didn't strike me as surprising at all. I mean, this is a campus, we are part of the Nerdy Nines, our UAA collective is commonly known. So, like, social, like, aspects of succeeding socially is not something I'm surprised to see with some of the people I remember in my freshman year of schools.
Hey guys. Representative Shaw?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, and I hope it's just not me. Actually, maybe that's not the right thing to say. But I kind of feel like on a daily basis, my life generally pertains to going to classes and then whatever extracurriculars that I attend, like USG or stuff like that. As far as putting myself out there on a social level that is not an obligation or a commitment of mine, I don't find that I generally have many of those events that I go to, like a concert that's hosted here on campus or stuff like that. So that's just like a really quick and a brief example of what's not here, I guess. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I feel like the university might be able to do more things to bring us together.
Representative Thompson?
So I think it's a combination of like a huge number of issues. Like really diverse issues, not necessarily huge. But just from the fact that the campus is like really big for how many students actually go here, and obviously everybody knows the history and why that is. Like for example, the sophomore class is split up into two residence areas that are like a mile apart. Then also just like the safety issue of crossing campus at night. Like if people felt safe just like spontaneously going out at night, that would change a lot. The academic focus of a lot of students just changes the vibe of the campus, and like even a lot of like the groups on campus are academic groups, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just the kind of like groups that we have. You know, the areas, like the things surrounding campus, like Uptown's actually vastly improved that. So just lots of different things. I don't know how we would solve it, but there's lots to consider.
Representative Conway?
So just to take up what Samir said about how, like, I don't know, if there's nothing going on campus, I would disagree to that by, like, being on finance, like, you hear every event going on, and, like, there's so much going on that I want to go to, like, so it's not a matter of, like, we don't have enough going on, like, every weekend there's, like, tons of events, that's not awesome. So I don't think it's an issue with that.
Vice President Fish?
Academic affairs, if you're going to go have a midterm study break, we need to go over so we can set up and everything.
So if you are going to help Karen, you are granted your personal privilege. Representative Juice.
This is a question for President Hale. Do you have information on how these statistics have changed over time, or like how we've gotten to the point now?
President Hale, do you happen to? President Hale. Do you happen to know how if these statistics have changed over time or how we've trended in the past few years? Do you have information easily available?
I do. Can you give me like 30 seconds to give Larry something?
Sure. So we'll get back to that.
I mean, yeah, because just my point is, I've never felt anything but socially supported here. So I think it would be interesting to see if this is an area that we've been improving in or getting worse actually, but just
I think that, with having so many things going on every weekend, I think part of the problem with that is, at least personally, I feel like I never hear about any of it, or they're put on posters in really random areas, and I have to search for things to do on a weekend. So I'm hoping that we really advertise that website that was brought up a few weeks ago with IT, and if that becomes successful, then I think that kids would have more access on campus and knowledge of what's happening every weekend and feel like they have more social opportunities.
Representative Ferguson.
I guess social life for me is really what you make of it, and I think that it's not really a lack of opportunity, it's almost a lack of initiative in some ways. There's tons we can find out there, that we can enjoy, it's just a matter of going after it. I think that's just my opinion on the social scene.
So for the time trend, I only have in front of me an aggregate statistic for the 3 questions of both support for succeeding academically, non-academic responsibilities, and thriving socially. And both of those scores in 2012 were the highest they've ever been. So to give you a 10-year perspective, the supportive campus environment rate of satisfaction in 2012 was 55%, and it's now 61%. And for seniors in 2002 was 55, 12, 61. For seniors in 2002, it was 43%, and it's now 55%.
We have time for just 2 more points. So Vice President Williams.
So actually as a response to the so many events going on, I don't know what I should go to. One of the cool things that SparkLink actually does is it will recommend events for you based on your interests. So if you ever go on there, and I actually encourage you to do this, it will recommend organizations for you and also recommend events that you might want to attend based on, do you like outdoor things? Do you like campus-only things? It's not perfect. It keeps recommending me to join the Case Women's Glee Club. And while I have an absolutely lovely voice, don't think I fit in. So it's not perfect, but there are a lot of great recommendations on there. So I guess the other thing is that you actually have to put in what you're interested in, so do that.
Final point for now, Vice President Cal.
Yeah, I guess going back to the original comment, I don't see how it's the government's job to follow. Like, I mean, yeah, it's important to be social, but our job is to fund groups and recognize groups and all that. However, opposite that point, we are the reason those events happen. We fund all of that stuff on campus. So saying that we don't do our job, I think we are doing our job by funding $200,000 worth of fund. Also, I'd like to start what Andrew Brown said about this. Not really, not just, yeah, but it was weird. That's all.
President Hale's like good feedback for now. Do you have any other sort of specific focusing points?
Well, if I may abuse your giving me some attention, absolutely. My question was, I think this came to me as some very strong feedback from one of your constituents about the thing that is wrong with Case Western. And I think the statistics speaks for itself, the way it was discussed to me speaks for itself. I think there's an opportunity not for us to create more events on campus, but to advocate for what services might improve that statistic. So what do you think Case Western ought to do? I'm not asking that question for us to discuss now, but think about what could the school do to improve the support it gives students for thriving socially. That's what I was trying to get at. But I think you guys raised some really cool points, and I appreciate all the thoughts you guys gave. Thanks.
If you had something you really wanted to say and didn't have a chance to, I'm sure President Hale would still love to keep getting feedback if you want to shoot him an email. Are there any other points for open forum discussion? Mr. Noonan?
I don't know if this is just me or not, but a lot of the bathrooms lately don't have soap in them. Especially Sears, Nord, Twing, all of these bathrooms, like the three soap dispensers that I have access to in Twing the one by our office and the one that's downstairs were all out simultaneously. So I don't know if this is like, this seems to me like a systemic problem. And we're in the flu season, so I wonder if student life could do something or consider.
President Brown is shaking his head yes, so
It is
I'm sure he'll
appreciated.
look into that.
Other points for open forum discussion? Okay, seeing none, only is going to give an advisory report, so we'll be moving right into announcements. Treasurer Ridgway.
So if you want to get more social, there is Nacho Tuesday tonight at 10 o'clock at the Sigma New House. Lots of people to come and eat nachos, so you're welcome to join us.
Mr. Noonan?
If you're interested in possibly being on the election commission, find me after GA.
President Hale?
So Colleen is not here tonight, and she wanted to be, but she's homesick today for flu. So if you guys shoot her an email and maybe says things feel better, or write her a card that says feel better, I know she'd appreciate it, but she's not doing well right now.
Vice President McCallum?
I just want to say one of the happiest moments of my life the other day happened. I was in charge of another meeting for Crew Capital, and I noticed one of my people on my committee was looking at his phone for like 5 minutes, and I demand respect. So I said, excuse me, I didn't say excuse me, but I said, hey, are you paying attention up here? And he was like, no, I'm sorry. I was like, is there anything more important? He was like, yeah, no, I'm just reading the USG newsletter about that. And I was like, oh, you can keep doing it. He didn't know I wrote it, but he told me. I'm so happy. That's my
Okay, so this is, well, it's not really related, but it's like similar to themes. I was in Norwood the other day, and there were these people standing next to me who had seriously a 5-minute conversation on how awesome the new printers were, and how they were just so excited about the printers. I think it's have to going, so it warms my heart.
Representative Thompson?
Yeah, we're working on printers. I was in Sears yesterday to print out my senior project report, and there was a line for the printer. Like, that's never happened ever. So I guess also they're replacing, I don't know if they finished it, but they're replacing all the card readers on the new printers because a lot of them were breaking. They had a problem with like static electricity. So they should be a lot more reliable in the future.
Any other announcements? Secretary Aston?
If you came in late, if you are still missing a placard, or if you need access to the USG office, please come.
President Hale?
So, I don't know if you guys know about ThinkBox, but it's awesome. Check it out on the web. But I was playing around in ThinkBox, and I made y'all a little something. So you should stop by before you head out. I think I have enough. If I don't, I'm really sorry. I'll bring you one later. But come see me. I have something for you. It's cool. It's worth it.
Any other announcements? Representative Running Swan?
Move to adjourn.
Second.